In this section, we're going to look at reading difficulties again. Earlier we dealt with comprehension difficulties, but now we're going to look at reading fluency difficulties. So basically, as we mentioned earlier, there are three key hurdles in reading difficulties. Firstly is the comprehension difficulties, which we dealt with in the previous section. Secondly, are reading fluency difficulties that we're going to deal with in this section. And once we get over the first two hurdles, then we can look at enjoying reading. So what I want you to do, I want you to read the following sentence. Fairly simple, yes? Now let's look at exactly what happened while you were reading that sentence. We view reading as a three-stage process. So while somebody's reading, the first thing happens is that the two eyes come together and track across the words and lines. The second stage is we say the words inside their head. And the third stage is the comprehension stage, where we make a video of what we have read, which we dealt with in the previous section. In this section, we're going to focus on the eye tracking part, where the eyes track across the words. So in this section, we'll look at two areas. Firstly, eye tracking, and secondly, perception. So eye tracking refers to how the two eyes move together while reading, and perception refers to what people see when they look at something. So when you look at this picture, what do you see? Some people will notice two faces face on with their nose touching, and other people will see the candle coming up here in the middle. So it really depends on how you look at something as to what you see. And that's what perception is, and we'll look at that secondly. So eye tracking. We're all familiar with the basic process, for example, of catching a ball. When we go to catch a ball, our two hands must move at the same time to catch the ball. There would be very little point in one hand being up here and one hand being down here, because you would be unable to do that. Likewise with reading. When it comes to reading, the two eyes must come together and track across the words. That doesn't happen easily for everybody. And that's why some people can experience slow and hesitant reading. Well, let's look how everybody can experience slow and hesitant reading. So a simple thing. What I want you to do, I want you to read out those words on the page. Off you go. So read them out loud to yourself. Easy. Now this time, what I want you to do, instead of calling out the words, I want you to call out the colour it's written in. So for example, green, red, blue. Off you go. And that wasn't so easy, was it? Now let's look what happened here. So the first time I asked you to read the words, the part of your brain that recognized words was switched on. The second time, when I asked you to read the colour it was written in, or to call out the colour the word was written in, the part of your brain that recognized colour was also switched on. And now we have conflict in the brain. So two parts of the brain are conflicting. So how does this reflect in reading? So normally what happens when we read is that the two eyes come together and they track across each word, and we can recognize the words. But that doesn't happen for everybody. So let's watch these eyes. So here we have the eyes, and if we start to read, we can see that one eye has slowed down and the other eye is speeding up. And now what happened is the brain is now coping with two pieces of information, one from the left eye and one from the right eye, causing conflict in the brain and leading to slow and hesitant reading and sometimes mixing up words. So here we can see really good convergence. The two eyes are very well coordinated and the words are clear. Here we have the two eyes hitting off different points and the words start to be a little bit confused and mixed up. And in more extreme cases, you can see this type. And that's what many people with dyslexia will report while they're reading. Therefore, the reading can be slow and hesitant and very much not fluent. This is taken from the New Scientist magazine. So you can see words moving up and down the line and overlapping. Much more difficult to read like that. Here's another example taken from the New Scientist magazine. And you can see where the words are quite blurred and moving on the either side of the page and perhaps quite clear in the middle, which will often give rise to reading being inconsistent. So imagine somebody learning to play tennis for the first time. What often happens with new tennis players is that they watch the ball or keep their eyes on the ball, and eventually when the ball lands close to them, they will move the tennis racket back and then hit the ball. After a while, they become more competent at this. So they begin to anticipate where the ball is going to land and they will move their tennis racket back much more quickly. So they have good anticipatory movement while playing tennis, which means they become more competent at this. Something similar can happen when we're reading. Now I want you to read this sentence to yourself. And that was pretty easy. Now this time, when you're reading the sentence, I want you to just allow your eyes to look at the word that you're saying. Don't let your eyes go ahead to the next word until you've said the word you're looking at. And that's what it feels like to read without anticipatory eye movement. Now let's watch Dylan reading without anticipatory eye movement. So basically, Dylan has been instructed not to allow his eyes to go ahead. So I want you, as you're listening to Dylan, to try and follow the story.
Each word at a time.
The beast whirled around the corner, staggered on the edge of the hole. His head jerked to face us. His eyes glowed red.
It's quite interesting, isn't it? So just by changing the eye movement, it changes the reading completely, and obviously it affects comprehension because it's not quite as easy to follow what is happening in the story. Now Dylan will read the same story with anticipatory eye movement. So let's watch this.
The beast whirled around the corner, staggered on the edge of the hole. His head jerked to face us. His eyes glowed red. He opened his mouth in an ugly growl. He swayed, trying to keep his balance. Then he plunged down the open staircase. I heard him land with a heavy thud.
Okay, Dylan. So how many words ahead are you reading now that you're reading like that?
About 6 or 7.
About 6 or 7. And what's it like when I ask you to read just one word at a time?
It's hard.
It's hard, okay? Because you normally read 6 or 7 words ahead. Do you remember what you've read when you just read one word at a time?
No, not really.
No. And how do you remember what you read when you read 6 or 7 words ahead?
Because it's like going in, it's going in long-term memory.
Oh, what's long-term memory? Is that making a picture or saying something?
Making a picture.
Making a picture. And that picture you're making, is it a still picture or is it a video?
It's a video.
And how big is the video? Is it as big as a 42-inch plasma or as big as the cinema?
Big as the cinema.
Big as the cinema. And do you like making really big pictures?
Yeah.
When you're reading a really exciting book, what do the colours look like in a picture?
Bright.
Right. And if it's a boring book, what do the colours look like?
Bit black and white and
Bit
stuff
black
like
and white. And does the size of the picture get smaller and like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Okay. Thank you.
Very interesting, isn't it? So simply by changing your anticipatory eye movement, you can change your reading fluency and hence your comprehension. What we do at Dyslexia Bay is we work with individuals who have reading difficulties, whether it's comprehension difficulties or eye tracking difficulties, and once we can identify those difficulties, we can help them overcome them. So this time, what I want you to do, I'm going to present 2 sentences and I want you to read the sentences to me. Are you ready? So the words are going to come up one word at a time. Interesting story, wasn't it? Now, what exactly did you read? Most of you will find that you can identify each of the words coming up quickly, but you can't remember what you've read. So word identification is not reading. So I ask you simply to read those two sentences, and now by being able to track across the words, letting your eyes go ahead, you're now able to firstly read fluently, and secondly, remember and comprehend what you've just read.